Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. It is 11:05 a.m. California time. Today is Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. I am Dharma Master Thich LAI, and I would like to extend my warmest greetings to all my Buddhist followers overseas and in Vietnam. As usual, I have a memorial ceremony for the spirit of a Buddhist follower, and then I have a Dharma talk about the Diamond Sutra. Today is the 49th day memorial service for the spirit of Sir Thong Thong. I would like to dedicate the merit of preaching this sutra for the spirit of this Buddhist follower. As scheduled, I plan to preach about the section where the Buddha asked Elder Dubode if he thought the Buddha attained supreme enlightenment, and if the Buddha had talked about Dharma or not. It is a very strange thing for the Buddha to ask like that. We cultivate so that we can attain enlightenment, but the Elder Dubode replied that according to his understanding, the Buddha did not obtain the supreme enlightenment, and he did not preach any Dharma. On the contrary, the Buddha had left us with the Tripitaka. This passage that I will preach about the Diamond Sutra for today, as well as weekly schedule. Before I preach about this section, I'd like to answer a few emails sent by people who listen to the Diamond Sutra because they have questions about the Diamond Sutra. I'd like to ask you to spend a little time listening to these questions before I answer them in this Dharma talk. I want these people to understand thoroughly before I preach the new section. I hope you'll be understanding. In this email, there was a question of the Zen Buddhist follower. This fellow practices Truk Lam Zen Tu Zin Siek Left led by Zen Master Thich Tan Do. He lives in Hawaii and questions as follows. Dear Venerable, I am a Buddhist follower who practices Zen Sek, not Pure Land method. According to my understanding of the Diamond Sutra, the sixth patriarch, Hu Neng, stated that the reason he followed the fifth patriarch, Huang Nang, was because he listened to the Diamond Sutra and he recognized his Buddha's nature. He then left his mother to seek for Dharma. I have been reciting the Diamond Sutra for the past 10 years, and I have questions about mind and nature. Are they the same, or are they two separate things? If they are the same, then why in the sutra there is this verse? Clear the mind, recognize the nature, have bright wisdom, obtain transcendental power, save your Dharma masters. This Zen cultivator wants to know if the mind and the wisdom are one, or are they two different things? If they are one, then why the sutra said that to clear the mind, to recognize nature, but not as clear the nature to recognize the mind? This fellow also doesn't agree about saving his Dharma master because he learned from his Dharma master How can he possibly save his master? Normally, the master saves the disciples, not the other way around. The above verse is recited daily by the Buddhist follower. There is also another sentence in the sutra that says, cultivating mind, nurturing nature. Why can't it be cultivating nature, nurturing the mind? It was signed by a young Buddhist follower who is from Hawaii and practices Thich Zen sect under direction of Venerable Thich. I think this question is a great question because he wants to know if the mind and nature are one or two separate things. If they are one, then why say clear your mind to see your nature, or cultivating your mind and nurturing your nature? In addition, if anyone who obtained enlightenment, then we say that person has recognized his nature instead of recognizing his mind. It is a very good question. This is another question from a Buddhist follower. He wrote, I have been reciting the Diamond Sutra for over 10 years because my Dharma master told me that only reciting the Diamond Sutra can help me to recognize my nature. My Dharma master also practices Zen, but not the tamnguyentemple sect. But he was a descendant of a Thai Zen master. His master performed a mind-to-mind transmission for him, and he made his disciple recite the Diamond Sutra. I have been chanting the Diamond Sutra for over 10 years, but I still haven't rid my delusional mind and retained my true mind. For example, my wife had some issues at her work, and when she got home, she was angry and found any reason to fight with me. I couldn't control my temper, and all the merit from chanting the Diamond Sutra was all gone. Master Tongmlai, please show me how to apply the essence of the Diamond Sutra in this situation so I can rid my delusional mind and retain my true mind. I wish you and your mind is always bright to complete your Buddhist work. Signed by a Buddhist monk who lives in Arizona. That is the second question. And the third question doesn't translate or relate to the Diamond Sutra, but I already promised this Buddhist follower who lives in Toronto, Canada. Her name is Tamtin, which means calm mind. In her email, she says that her house has ants, cockroaches, and mosquitoes. She kills these pests, especially during the summer, and wants to know if it is okay for her to recite the Pure Land Rebirth Dharma mantra for her killing. She listens to Venerable Hu Hua Dharma talk. He said if anyone who kills ducks and chickens while reciting Buddha's name or Pure Land Rebirth Dharmini mantra for their killing, in the end, these people will have mental problems. The Buddhist follower Din Tum wanted to know what to do when she kills an ant or a cockroach. What should she do to redeem for her killing sin? As soon as I saw this question, I have to answer for her because there were many people who have asked the same question in the past. During summer in the United States, the ants from the ground attack into the house. Killing them creates sin, but if not, they would infect the whole house. Some southern states are agriculture, such as Florida, have mosquitoes. After killing the mosquitoes, the Buddhist followers would recite the Pure Land Rebirth Dharmini mantra for their killings. These people want to know if they can redeem their sins by doing that or not. They also want to know if the pests would be reborn to the Pure Land or not. This question doesn't have anything to do with the Diamond Sutra, but because of compassion, I have to talk about it in this Dharma talk session. So I will answer these 3 questions. First question was a young Buddhist follower who lives in Hawaii and practices Tuk Lam Zen sect, led by Zen master Thich. He wants to know if there are differences between the mind and nature. If there aren't, then why the Sutra said cultivating your mind and nourishing your nature, or clear the mind, recognizes nature. The second question was from another Buddhist follower who practices with his master, who has mind-to-mind transmission by a famous Zen master in Thailand. His master came back to Vietnam and established a new sect that specializes in reciting the Diamond Sutra. His Zen master told the disciple to chant the Diamond Sutra, and one day they will be able to recognize their nature. He has been reciting for over 10 years. During his chanting, he could control his delusional mind and retain his true mind. However, when the reciting has ended and his wife was angry because of her work issues, he couldn't control his temper or his delusional mind. These are the 2 questions that relate to the Diamond Sutra, and there is also one other question that is not related to the sutra at all. Please listen to my answers. I now answer the question about the mind and nature, whether they are the same or 2 separate things. In my opinion, this question is relating to the Diamond Sutra. To understand the mind and nature, we need to have an example. Let's talk about the seawater and the waves. Are they 1 or 2 separate things? If anyone says the wave and the ocean water are 2 different things, then they do not have enough specific knowledge to understand. The waves are from the ocean water that is created by the wind. If the wind is weak, then there are only ripples. As the wind gets stronger, the waves get stronger. If the wind is very strong, the wave will turn into a tsunami. When people ask if the wave and the ocean water are 1 or 2 separate things, if I answer 1, then they will ask why the water doesn't sink the boat, but the wave does. If I answer 2, then it is not correct because I do not fully understand the science of the ocean and the wave. If I answer they are 2 separate things, then people can only see the top of the tree, but not the root. The root is the wave, and the sea is only 1. Can you see the taste of waves and ocean are also salty? If you agree, then we haven't confused here. As you can see, when a person who cultivates by Zen sect and is enlightened, people will say he has recognized his nature. People also cultivates the mind in nourishing nature. That was also the question of this young Buddhist follower from Hawaii. What does nourishing mean? In your opinion, what is nurturing your nature? For example, if anyone has a father and his mother that are still alive, he has to nurture his parents to repay them for giving birth and raising him. My parents all passed away. Anyone recommend me to try to nurture my parents to repay them? That statement is unreasonable because none of them are alive. So the word nurture helps to identify that we all have Buddhist nature that we do not know, such as we think that are orphans, but now someone shows us our parents and our relatives. because we know who our parents are, so we can nurture them. It is good to understand this point. I try to give an example for you to understand. The Buddha's nature has both a true mind and a delusional mind. The mind is also known as the thought, but not the nature. Let's talk about the eyes to further explain this topic. The eyes can see are the normal eyes without disorder. If you can see without preaching Dharma on the live stream, then your eyes are not abnormal. Just like if you can hear me, then your ears are normal. Some people don't have eyes, but they still have the seeing. However, they have no eyes to contact with the image in front of them, so they can't see. Some have normal eyes, but they are sleeping, so their seeing ability is not working. If you show them the money or a beautiful girl, they won't be able to differentiate between ugly and beauty. As I mentioned in a previous session, when I hold up the iPhone, then 500 viewers can see it. The very first seeing is pure. That was pure seeing by the true mind and Buddha's nature. However, the very next thought created by a differentiated and calculated mind, an abnormal eye can't see the phone. Only a normal eye with the seeing ability that is not sleeping but awake. To further simplify, let's say the eye is the camera and the electrical power is the seeing ability. When we sleep, the electrical power is off, so the camera will not work. You have to pay attention to this. A seeing is created by the eye, or the camera with the electrical power, or the seeing ability. Where is the seeing ability? It is in the true mind. The seeing doesn't create sin because the seeing is pure. However, if the very next fraction of time, the consciousness will combine together. The consciousness differentiates between the poor or the rich. The consciousness creates the differentiated mind, the mind that recognizes the surrounding and the calculating. Where does the consciousness come from? Let me give you an example. A mental person who doesn't have consciousness. The mental person can see the surroundings, ugly and beautiful, red and black. But because of the mental illness, so there was no consciousness. If you give a mental person a feces, he will still pick it up, even put it in his mouth. The infant who are under 6 months of age, when they get hungry, they will put everything in their mouth because it is basic instinct. At this young age, consciousness still hasn't started to work yet. The baby only uses their seeing ability from their eyes. Once the baby grows older, the mother will teach the feces is dirty because of the parents and teaching from mothers, which is called learned intellectual. As human beings, we look at the feces as filth, but the dung beetle or the catfish sees the feces as their food because of their karma. Because of our karma, we see the feces as filth. We have to know that besides having healthy eyes, which have no disorder, no glaucoma, no cataract, we also need consciousness. The first consciousness that interacts is the manifested mind. The manifested mind is the eighth consciousness and interacts with the eye to create the event. The eyes are pure, but side along with the consciousness. The consciousness can create both merit and sins. The consciousness is also the thought. The Shangaranga Sutra, the Buddhist asks Varnamo Ananang where the mind is located. Varnamo said the mind is the thought to differentiate. The Buddha said that he was wrong, that the delusional mind of Varnamo Anang, the truth is, the mind was Varnamo Anand's consciousness. According to Zen practitioner, the consciousness is like the monkey, and the mind is like the horse. The Zen practitioner have to control their monkey consciousness and stallion mind. In other words, they have to control their delusional mind. According to my personal knowledge, the consciousness creates sins. If a beautiful girl walks by, the first sight seen by my healthy eyes is pure. That is, my eyes have all the corona without cataract and also have enough brightness. But if it was nighttime, I wouldn't be able to see it at all. The image will be recorded purely like the mirror in the Platform Sutra that is mentioned by the Venerable Thich. He had not saw his Buddha's nature, so he assumed the mirror was tinted with the image of a young man and woman, with money, with relatives and acquaintances, with all the unhappiness in the world. That was the reason he said it needed to be wiped every day in order to be clear. The sixth patriarch already attained, so he knew nothing can taint the mirror. The mirror was like his Buddhist nature. He can see all the male, female, ugly or beautiful, but he would not retain once the event was over. Unlike the sixth patriarch, Venerable Thich saw ugly and beauty, but he retained them in his mind. That was the reason Venerable Thich had to use the sutra and mantra to wipe his Buddha's nature. He wiped his Buddha's nature off and recorded the new images again. That was the reason the fifth patriarch said that Venerable Thich is only at the entrance of the enlightenment, where Sir Huineng was already inside the enlightenment, so he no longer needed to wipe off his Buddha's nature. To further explain, I would use the story of the old lady burning the hut. In the past, there was a Buddhist monk cultivated very meticulously. He kept getting harassed by Buddhist followers, and he couldn't meditate. People told each other that this monk cultivated in the forest and was very meticulous. They always tried to find him to make offerings. He lamented to the old rich laywoman. He said that he left his father and mother to look for the way to clear his mind and nurture his nature so that he would become a Buddha to repay his parents and to save sentient beings. However, the layman and laywoman always found him. As soon he ended his meditation session, they would question him non-stop. He also had to walk to receive offerings every day, so he had no time to cultivate, and that made him feel hurt. As soon as the old laywoman heard the monk complain, she made him an offering. She said that she would have secluded yard located away from the city. She would build a hut for him to cultivate the Dharma. The monk said that he did not need much space. He only needed a hut around 36 square feet, enough to place a bed and a well. In the old days, there was no water supply from the city, so people get water from digging wells. He also asked for a meal every day around noon. He wanted to practice his Buddhism in seclusion for 3 years so he could clear his mind to see his Buddhist nature. Once he became enlightened, he would preach Dharma and save sentient beings to repay. He would dedicate the merit to the laywoman. She was very happy to hear that and took him to her yard to choose a location for his hut and the well. His hut was very simple, just big enough to fit a bamboo cot and no night light. He lived in a very simple life. Every day at lunch time, the old woman's niece would bring him a meal to eat at lunch. The Buddhist followers in the village were very delighted to see the honorable monk enter solitude to clear his mind and see his Buddhist nature, so that one day he would be enlightened and save sentient beings from samsara. People would observe him carefully, and he knew that he did not make contact without the outside world. As time gone by, all the Buddhist followers in the village waited. The hut was a small hole to receive food every day. He showered and did his laundry inside the hut. He would use his hand to fan off the moisture from the cloth instead of using the sun. When it was 3 years, as the laywoman announced with his temple, where he took refuge in the past, many Buddhist followers came from 10 directions to welcome the holy monk, who gave up all the indulgence in the world to cultivate in the hut. Prior to 12 p.m., which was his time to exit his solitude cultivation, the old woman told her niece to put on her best dress, makeup, and perfume. Her only role was hugging the monk tightly, even though many people would be surrounded. When the niece hugged the monk, the old woman would ask about Dharma. The girl asked if that was blasphemous. Violating the precepts would cause sin or not. The old lady told her niece that the reason she wanted her to do this was because she wanted to see if the monk surrounded his delusional mind and stayed in his true mind as he wished when he entered solitude practicing Dharma. At noon, the monk struck the bell 3 times, and the door was opened after closing for 3 years. Per her aunt's instruction, the girl hugged the monk tightly, and at that time the old lady asked, "Monk, master, after 3 years of genuine spiritual practicing and not enjoying wealth, beauty, fame, indulgence, and rest, how do you feel when this beautiful girl hugged you?" The monk calmly said, "After 3 years in retreat, there was no close proximal to wealth, beauty, fame, indulgence, and sleep. There was no close to beauty or sweet compliments. I am like a dried tree in the winter, covered with snow, and all the seeds cannot sprout. So to me, this girl doesn't give me any feeling." All hundreds of Buddhist followers were dumbfounded and clapped their hands. They bowed to the religious merits of the monk, but the old lady beneficiary said that it was a waste of her efforts to build the hut. Digging a well and offered meals for 3 years to turn a monk who used to have all 6 senses and became a person without eyes, without ears, without nose, without a tongue, and his body has lost its senses. She set the hut on fire, and she wanted him to leave because he was not worth for people to worship. The monk was very sad because he was scolded by this old lady and did not know how to respond. In his opinion, he practiced Buddhism very meticulously. He felt like a dry tree covered in snow when the beautiful girl hugged him. But why did she scold him? He returned to his temple and met his vulnerable master. The story of 3 years retreat made the monk lose his feeling that the beautiful girl had spread to the vulnerable. The vulnerable told the monk that the old lady was right. In order to be a Buddhist monk, one must have all 6 senses. Being a monk after 3 years of solitude without contacting with other sex, so you lost your feelings for the beauty. Your mind, like the grass, couldn't grow because of the heavy stone laying on the top. Once you were no longer in seclusion, had enough interaction, your grass would regrow again. You did not root your delusional mind completely. When your eyes see the beautiful, your ears hear the beautiful, your body in contact with the beautiful, and you still control the delusional mind and retrain the true mind. That when you really dedicate the merit to the old lady. The old lady became angry because she did not have any merit. She was frustrated because of her. A monk with all 6 senses now turned into a vegetative person with cerebral palsy that no longer benefits the sentient beings. The monk asked his Venerable Master how to clear this humiliation. What should he do to clear his mind and see his Buddhist nature? The Venerable Master told the monk that he had to figure out himself. If the Master told him about clearing the mind and seeing the Buddhist nature, that was the enlightenment of the Master, not the monk. The monk had to learn for himself. He had to cultivate to find his own Buddhist nature. The monk complained that his Venerable Master was being difficult because he already enlightened, but would not show the monk. When the Venerable Master said that he was like the Buddha who declared 4 things, he could not do it. The first is that the Buddha could not give wisdom. We have to cultivate ourselves. The Buddha's son, his wife, and his mother all had to cultivate for their own wisdom. The second was the cause and effect. Whoever makes that person's bear. The Buddha could not fix someone's cause and effect. The third was the Buddha could not help predestined people. The fourth was the Buddha's nature was the ultimate truth of the Dharma that cannot be used to describe the words, because if it could be described, then it would no longer be ultimate Dharma. For example, he had to solve a difficult math lesson himself so that he could solve other lessons. If the Venerable Master gave him the answer key, the monk would not be able to solve other math problems. The monk said goodbye to his Venerable Master to return to the old lady to correct his mistake. The monk met the old lady and bowed to her. He then told the old lady that he talked and learned from his Venerable Master and wanted her to give him one more chance. He wanted to go into retreat for 3 more years so he could correct his shame. The monk guaranteed that the day he completed his retreat, he would not let her down, and that she would have a lot of merit for helping a monk to cultivate to be enlightened. And the old lady said that the hut was burned down, but she saw him having a repentant heart and a desire to remain in the true mind and surrender to the delusional mind. She would ask a contractor to rebuild the hut again. The well is still there, and at the same time every day the girl sent him his meals. At the end of the 3rd year, the ceremony was witnessed by his Venerable Master and many colleagues. At that time, the old lady also asked her niece to hug the monk and ask him the same question again by herself. When the monk struck the bell 3 times to open the hut in front of many Buddhist followers in the nearby area, a lot of fellow practitioners and even the Venerable Master. The girl hugged the monk and asked how the monk felt to have a beautiful girl like her hugging him. The monk did not respond like 3 years ago. He said that when he hugged a beautiful girl, only he knows his feeling, and only she knew her feelings. There was no need to tell the old lady how he felt. The old lady clapped her hands and said that was truly a saint, and it was not wasteful to support the monk for 3 additional years. As you can see, when the beautiful girl hugged the monk and the monk said that he did not feel anything, that indicated he became a person without 6 senses. With further practice, he acknowledged the beautiful girl, and when in contact with her, he still knew the feeling, but his knowing is the knowing of the true mind and Buddha's nature. It was the knowing generated by the 8th consciousness. Whatever the beautiful girl knew, and however she used to know, only her knew, and he did not need to know.